So here we are, Tuesday morning, uh, second, third, the beginning of the third turn of summer storm. So far, the Confederates haven't moved at all because they need to collect up their victory points. They would have, they need to stay in encampment to get victory points. And honestly, they get way too many, but that's another point. For the Union, I probably overmoved a little bit because I did a little bit of cheating in terms of not paying attention to their divisional morale state. Yet another thing I have to look up when I'm dealing with the with the activation roll. The activation roll is already complex, even when I wasn't taking that into account, just because of trying to cope with this map, which is hideous. The command system is cumbersome, but anyway, in terms of describing what's happened, instead of complaining about the game, but I am really unimpressed with where this ended up. You've got part of First Corps has kind of strung its way onto the map. You got Third Corps beginning to trickle on. That's onto the tactical map. First Corps is almost at Gettysburg. They can't go any further without kind of revealing their location. So that would be a problem. By revealing their location, I mean there will be a little flag here on the Confederate map. Whereas if I just park here and rest here and don't move any further, I won't be triggering any call-outs that go over onto that map. Other units, the Cav, still inching its way to trying to cut Stewart off. Merritt's doing the same over here. Buford's stuck in place because if he moves, he triggers that problem in terms of like the Confederates being able to see maybe not everything the Union's doing, but everything the sort of foremost line of Union units is doing. And if they move from that point on, it's going to show up over on the Confederate map, and then I have some idea where the Union forces are. These guys back here would also become problematic because they're not screened. So like movement in this direction, I could argue, there's some fuzzy rules that allow you to like not call out your movement outside of that initial line. And I think I could reasonably get away with moving behind this line. But it's, iffy because there's a big gap here. Like it says it doesn't have to be a continuous line or anything. I think it's possible that units will pass each other by on the maps. And is that terrible? Nah, shit like that did happen, so what of it, I'm having issues with the traffic jam down here. Things like 11th Corps aren't moving very well. Just shit like that. And many of the units just didn't get the command points that they needed over the two turns to be able, for the Union, to be able to rest and recover. They have to break camp to rest and recover and get themselves deployed, strung out in a line, and then they're allowed to start resting and recovering. So it costs, they have to get a successful activation. It doesn't cost, it costs a point to put the chit in the box. So they had to have a point for that from their Corps commander. And then it costs, and I think everybody's in there now, the ones that are facing me to the left-hand column, those are the ones that haven't yet switched, okay? Once you pay that first point, you can stay in here for free, but in order to actually go into the rest and recovery mode fully, you have to pay a second point. So it takes at least 2 turns to do it. You get movement throughout all of that, but you're not allowed to rest while you're in camp. You're only allowed to rest if you're strung out on the road. And but now these guys who are upside down, every turn, no matter what happens, if their leader goes inactive, if they get 0 points, whatever, they will be recovering a proportion based on the size of the unit of the division, of their division's morale. Now the thing I screwed up is that over on the activation table, I didn't count the shaken, and there was like one broken division, but I didn't count the shaken penalties against some of the divisions that have it. There's probably a pretty good chance that 1 or 2 of my units probably should have gotten only half movement or maybe no movement points at all. They wouldn't go inactive for it, I think. I'm not sure. Generally, things that penalize you on the die roll here don't cause inactivity. But it would kind of make sense, because what is division shaking? It's the unit not being ready to do anything, and it may also be the commander's own assessment. I'm pretty sure the Army morale is the Army commander's assessment of the situation and nothing else. Well, I don't know. Maybe long-term effects on the Army as well, but like longer outside the scope of the game. But in terms of effect on play, it has no effect on play until you hit the highest level. And when you hit the highest level, you quit. You quit playing. You're not even allowed, like, there's no rules for withdrawal or anything like that. But that's fine. Pursuits were not much of a thing for the most part. And it's not like it's an uncontrolled route or anything, especially if you're looking at it as the commander just says, yeah, I can't. When the divisional morale starts dropping down, it's not clear. Some of that is definitely wear and tear on the men, because they get those marks, I believe, from overmarching, from doing too many activities. Like if you buy an additional chit, well, if you use an additional chit. Now, if you buy an additional chit, if you do certain things like the attack option, you end up paying divisional morale factors. So this is sort of fatigue. It's also going to handle some other situations, which I haven't really paid too much attention to. If we look at charts, we'll eventually find something. But yeah, if an individual unit is broken, what does that mean? Well, that's their own morale state. So if they take their own morale hits, they get hurt from that. When a unit's eliminated, it gets or reduced, flipped to its reduced side. It takes morale hits for that. Just a bunch of things, officers having to leave, etc. And that's all factored in. Now, some of this is weird. So like here, division's original officer leaves to replace the lost corps commander. We're in that situation right now at the beginning of the game because Reynolds is a wing commander and Doubleday has left his division to become First Corps commander. But there's not an initial penalty for that because it's already the starting state. So, yeah, I'm trying to think. There might have been other things. So, I think if we looked at the Army morale, some of the stuff here, yeah, like a shaken division causes a penalty to the Army morale. But those aren't even assessed. There's no points on the Army morale. There's just points on the divisions. It's from a forced march. And yeah, the Army probably would have a lowered morale, but there's no reason for it. Although actually you could kind of like, you could avoid your penalties by engaging with beat up divisions, but that's probably not a wise thing to do. Like, your divisions are going to have significant issues. Although the significant issue is really just they don't get a lot of activity points, because this is basically fatigue when it comes down to it. It's, as far as I can tell, the only impact it has is over here. And yeah, this is why my videos take forever. I'm repeating stuff that I've said in the last one, but I feel like it's the biggest thing that I've got in the game is that I'm kind of learning how the system interacts with itself. The only real thing I know that it does is it affects your activity roll. Individual unit morale is handled. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some chart, because again, the rules don't have a good way of expressing everything that, say, your divisional morale state impacts. So maybe if I go and find the morale chart, I'll find that there's additional effects. Of course, there's so many fucking charts that I'm finding a hard time. Okay, so that's morale, but that's not that morale. Here's the morale check table, so let's look. Yeah, so a shaken or broken division gives a penalty to each individual unit's morale checks. So that would have an impact too. Now, does it have an effect on combat? Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Again, I look up the divisional morale thing and it doesn't tell me what it's affecting. I read through the combat rules and it's got all the modifiers, but they're just all clumped together. So it's like, you don't walk away from reading these rules or from even looking things up that you're interested in looking up with a real concept of what the impact of those things are in all cases. I'm not going to say the rules aren't repetitive. They are in some ways. I see that as an advantage for the most part. Like when rules give you little hints and notes that make you remember other factors and be able to find stuff. These are not well written in that sense. Overall, there just may be some places where they couldn't help where the designer couldn't help duplicating. But yeah, he even admitted the rules are kind of a mess in a lot of ways. But it's worse than that. I feel like the core design wasn't worth pursuing. Like, maybe there would be a way to make this work, okay? But and outside of any mechanical considerations of how fucking fiddly the system is with so many goddamn die rolls for seeing if things can move and how far and how many chits you have in here, and it's die rolls and mechanical actions mixed in with making decisions and everything in a way that's just very, very painful. But beyond that, where it really just doesn't work is in some of the sort of key things that are supposed to drive the action. And this is honestly not just the operational game. But yeah, how cumbersome this system is something that you can't really say it doesn't work because of that, but it's kind of like, is it worth it? Really? Are you sure? That's the kind of thing that when if somebody was saying, hey, you should get to designing this game that you've been talking about, and that you picked up Heart of Europe to try to design. The problem is I can't come up with a compromise that I'm willing to accept that would simplify and streamline things. And that happened with my role-playing game too, although my role-playing game I feel like I kind of did, but then I didn't like some of the effects of it and walked away from that. But it's not like I'm going to get anything published or anything, I'm just not that motivated. But yeah, I mean, I would have given this up as a concept well before it got to any point where I would convince anybody to try to play it. It is way too cumbersome, and it is lacking in any direction in terms of the victory conditions, forcing a battle, or there's no reason for a battle in the game, which is like, with all the effort that was put into making such a cumbersome design, you would think some effort would have been put into, well, how do I represent what the commanders were really trying to do? Not just defeat the enemy army, because look, if all you're doing is trying to defeat the enemy army, Lee's attack was suicidal, essentially. Why attack somebody when they're on good ground? Let them attack you. Let them win. But without some sort of direction to make you do that, and this is the problem. And most battle games and whatever just don't give you a good enough reason to engage, right? And you should never fight a battle unless you have an incredible advantage or you have to fight it, right? Like, you should never fight a battle that you can accomplish the same goals without fighting. And now, the goal of destroying the enemy army, well, sure, but how am I going to destroy the enemy army if he's defending on good terrain? Right? And there's a lot of good terrain on this map. Anyway. I don't know how many videos of this type there are going to be where I just complain and before I get to actually starting to put units on the tactical map and fighting a battle. Yes, the Confederates aren't getting any information. I wanted to, hey, let's see what happens, when we can activate the cav, etc. Well, so Jenkins has to have 3 CCPs spent on him by Ewell. Ewell's here, Jenkins is here. They're a distance of, what are those, 4 each? Yeah, 4 each. Oh, yeah. Just checking to make sure the movement point costs are the same across. They're not the same across, although they're pretty close when you look at the tactical map. So 4 each, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. Okay, my core range is only 18. So I would have to move Ewell to go talk to Jenkins. There's no reason I can't do that. I'm just trying to get an idea of what I'd have to do. Likewise, Imboden is encamped until 6 turns after Lee, this is 3 turns after Lee spends 3 points to recall him, or in July 1st. Okay. I don't really care too much about Imboden because I'm planning on sitting here and collecting up my 15 victory points a turn for at least this day. I don't think I should be allowed to do it more than the first day. But that means that I should see what my recall points are. Well, here's where the fun is, and this is this whole damn little crap ass map. So this hex leads into that hex. I can't tell where this one goes. This road goes up here. I don't know who goes into the Lee's hex. So the only way is by pulling this out. So that actually does go into there. I couldn't see it before. So then, oh, this is weird because it looks like a pike, but it's actually just the rail line in the secondary road. So it's a secondary road going to here at the long distance, and we got to look that up, but I think that's a lot. That's 6, yeah. And then they're 4 each. So it was here 6, 10, 14. Well, they don't connect here. All right, 6, 10, 14, 18, 22. I can get to about there, assuming that tracing for orders and whatnot gets that same weird kind of, you can exceed your movement your allowable movement rate by 1 hex, whatever that means. So somewhere around here. So if Lee wants to get an order to Imboden, I'm going to have to really walk him quite far down. Now I believe it's this hex that I count from. So that's 4, 8. This is Minor Road coming through here. 8, 14, 20. I think there's a minor here, but it's hard to see because the coloring and everything. These are Barber maps. They're not made to be readable, and these aren't made to be particularly pretty. You could make an argument that this is pretty, although again, I find the deformation and other things problematic about it. But yeah, I'm going to have to be somewhere in the mountains if I want to call Imboden back. It's not like I'm using Lee for anything right now, though, and recalling the cav seems like the best thing I can do, because then I can start picketing them out. Which again, what does that do? You know, I don't know. You know, I don't think these cav are meant to be moving around early in the game, but might be useful. Might be. Anyway, I rolled Lee's points, and I should move these guys all up so that I can distinguish each of them. I'm allowed to command both Hill and Longstreet, but Ewell is off on his own, obviously. It feels kind of funny, is this idea that if I want to get Imboden back, General Lee has to go riding off after him. Again, this is not realistic, right? I'm not saying that sometimes the generals would go search out for their subordinates and whatnot, but also quite often they would just send a dispatch out. Now I understand kind of the argument of you can't move around or whatever, but and it would probably make too much complexity to start having dispatch units running around with the orders. Although other games get away with that with a lot less, like, annoying shit than this game has in its command system. But there's enough here that you sure the hell don't want to add more, right? But I mean, if you just think about it, you know, it's just so fucking weird. It's like, if you want to look at something that's intuitive, the CWB system is relatively intuitive, i.e. easier to design than this must be, and just so much easier to play. Quite often when you look at something, you know, let's take this the most intuitive way, it would involve stuff like a leader running, you know, a little counter being like the dispatch, moving along the map or something. That would be the most intuitive side of it, instead of like the calculation that's done in CWB, which is like, well, how long would it take there to get from A to B, right from unit A to unit B right now? And then we don't, we don't take into account the fact that those units are moving, and unit B, the target, may be either moving closer or further away from the other unit. The Viva la Emperor series does take that into account, and it has the possibility of there being like dispatch units on the board moving around. I think I forwent them. I don't remember. Maybe not. Maybe I was using them. And that kind of very, very naive design for how long does it take for an order to get there is like, people are pasting stuff like that onto TSS and everything. And Minis games had rules like that. So, yeah. The only question here is, do you find writing out a few orders a day complex? And, some people would be like, I don't want to write anything down. But man, I mean, I would rather be peeling my toenails off than doing this in a lot of ways. Okay, maybe not, but it comes pretty close. This is pretty fucking miserable. All right, I've gotten myself all riled up and using up far too much video again. Use up some more. The thing is, I came up here with the idea of, I know how to do a turn. Look, I can just push through a turn, fuck it, get through the admin section or whatever before I have to go play raid, because it's about that time. I got about 15 minutes, which is nowhere near enough time to do the order section, but I'm willing to overspell just to try to get some in, and then, try to keep this so that I'm getting like a turn done every day or two. You have to remember CWB, like TSS, turns take maybe 20 minutes to an hour max, right? I think we're going from 1 to 1 to 1 to 3. But here, I don't know. I'd say the turns are taking a couple hours. They're longer periods, so maybe that's okay, but it doesn't feel okay. It feels like I'm just, rolling dice, moving from chart, rolling dice. But anyway, what I was trying to say is I came up here, kind of promised myself I wouldn't, I would just give you, hey, what happened, right? But then I come to a lookup and I find something out, which is the cav. And then as soon as I start talking, just, I can't help but express how fucking horrible this design is. That it neither takes the naive but potentially expensive mechanisms, where everything is detailed out and done exactly, in a very non-gamey sort of way, nor does it take the abstraction that leads to gaminess normally. What it kind of feels like it's done is it took the naive version and said, how can we make, this is cumbersome as hell. There's no question. The fully naive version, writing out, orders, double blind, an umpire, all kind of stuff like that would be in place, right? But let's take all that and let's see if we can make it more cumbersome. And, somehow that's what they managed to do. Or that's what Barber managed to do. And it's so frustrating. But again, this intrigued me so much that I wanted to see it. But it kind of doesn't matter. You've got to get on this map if you want to fight. You don't have to. You can fight on this stupid map. But it doesn't look like any fun. To get a little bit more familiar with what I'm trying to do with the command segment now. What I should be doing, whatever. I think I spent one off the first core, but maybe not. And I'm spending my command points, not just to move things here, but to get direct commands where I think that the order of units moving is of importance to me. Yeah, I can only, I mean, I can only do that where, right, the divisional commander, I'm sorry, the corps commander has a unit in command and can spend the order, but where I didn't, so for example, Doubleday's third corps is way back here. I think I'm in command here. I don't know. These are 3, 6, 9, 12. I think that's the only, I think that's my range, actually. So I think, actually, I screwed up and was not able to spend this, which means First Corps actually has another point. They had a pile of points. Because I'm not in range for my orders, right? Command range for Corps, that's 18 movement points. Hold on, maybe I am. 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I'm just out of range of his commander, which I think prevents me. I think I trace to the commander no matter what. I would on the tactical map. It's not, you know, feels a little weird on the operational map because the commander doesn't necessarily have to be at the head of his column in reality, but the means that by which you show the force, he's there. So yeah, so what I'm gonna have to do, and I moved Doubleday as far as I could up this way, is this is just out of command right now. It's not, it doesn't become independent or anything. But if I catch up a little closer, I'll be able to start recovering First Corps. I just moved him a hex too far. I didn't know, I moved him before I moved this, so I didn't know exactly, you know, where Doubleday was gonna end up or whatever. But yeah, we ended up getting an inactive over here with Kilpatrick. Is he allowed to? No, he's not allowed to. Never mind. He's independent. He's not allowed to go that way, but he has no points. But it meant he didn't get his shit in the march mode thing. He's in here in the cup with everyone else. But yeah, I was spending points on getting direct commands just so that I can control the traffic flow a little better. Had I done that earlier, the Union advance onto the tactical map would have been faster. There's nothing preventing them. You know, like I said, I'm not far from Gettysburg now, you know. Historically, they didn't park there. And can I do something more exciting? I could turn my army around. See, I can't get here without getting within 2 of Gettysburg and causing things. But if I turn this around and start heading this way, I can start getting into better terrain. Let's see. That's 3428. I can't go there. That's this down here, this little hill. 3326 is the cemetery hill. This feels distorted. 3428, 3326. Oh, that's right over Gettysburg. That's the problem. So yeah, I'm kind of looking at, if I cut across, I don't know, I could position myself down here at 3629. See. Wow, these change really quickly. Like, these mega hexes are mega. They don't seem like it. 3629 would be here at Sheep Heaven. Great. Somewhere behind Culpson Cemetery. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. So, I don't know where I'm parked right now. I'm at 3525. Which is, and you know, it's going to cost me my entire movement to switch the order of the formation. 3525 is down here. This is the hex I'm in here on the Emmitsburg Road, which is right next to Cemetery Hill. You know, that's not a bad place either. I'm in pretty good range that I can move up into there. Now, I could like go there and dig in and everything, I think. If you recall, maybe you don't, there are rules, I'm trying to remember, I think it's Terrible Swift Sword that has rules that don't allow you to dig in on the first day of the battle. And I think Thunder at the Crossroads, I think the CWB series as a whole has a special rule that basically means you're not allowed to dig in until like July 2nd, 1863, period, in any game, which feels goofy as hell. Like they designed it to model the same thing as TSS, but then like I think they may have withdrawn that from certain games. They're like, special scenario rule, you are allowed to dig in this. But it's just such a stupid thing you know, in TSS it's just part of the specific rules for that game. But yeah, in CWB it's like there's a specific date after which you can do it, and I think it lies right in the middle of Gettysburg. Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember if they. I think they withdrew it for at least one of the other games where they did dig in, you know. So it's like, yeah, this is kind of silly. So now I'm on Stuart. Okay, let's see if there's a roll for Stuart. The Confederates won by 6. That means the Stuart counter is first moved up a space on the track, back to 0. And then I roll a location. It's over here. Plus the date if in July. We're not in July, obviously. But I'm just wondering how big a difference it can make. 9, 10, 11. That's going to put me at Manchester, 45-43. I think he's coming on the map. Maybe not. Uh-oh, 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 what the hell? Oh, it's not at the edge of the map. Manchester is right here. There's no one within 2 of him. I do believe, yeah, we're going to get Stuart there. Let's see what happens. The location, no. Okay, nothing happens because I didn't find the Confederate army. That's what it is. So he only comes on the map. So he has to avoid Union. If he runs into Union troops, that screws him up like the last thing did, where it's like hex area 6 or whatever. I think I wrote it down somewhere. Where? There. It's a no contact. And it's not a no contact reroll. Okay. Sweet. Okay. And that means, yeah, I know. Now I'm just like molasses. That means we go to game turn initiative. I don't see much advantage. The Union's banked a point into second corps for tomorrow. Confederates want to use their points to move towards Imboden. The Union wins the initiative this time, and that means they're going to get the first action. There's not any bombardment. It's the action impulse control segment, do you think? I don't know. Not really. So the Union's going to get the first action. I could pick a direct action or a chit and have, randomly pick a chit, and have a little bit more control than I would normally have, like be able to engage in combat a little better and whatnot, under circumstances that I normally wouldn't be able to with that first activation. So that's kind of an interesting thing. If you win the initiative, you get kind of an individual initiative with one unit that you didn't give the proper orders to. You don't get the full orders, but you do get a little bit more power in terms of being able to engage with the enemy or whatever. And I think you get some kind of bonus. I don't remember beyond that, but yeah. So it's definitely time for raid now. And again, I didn't mean to spend this much time, not just complaining, but also on, you know, the zooming in on details and whatnot of where the points are. Union Corps, these are guys who had points they didn't feel they needed to spend. They might use them to move the Corps commander. Remember, I can move the commander up to 2 more times, and that doesn't cost me anything except for command points. Confederates absolutely have nothing that they're doing, so they're just, you know, letting them waste away. They will be very, very active when I want them to be. Oh, actually, no, these have a backside. They have like a +20 side. Yeah, so, you know, I could have 40 points. I assume if I go over 40, I'm just screwed, because that's just unreasonable already. On his past, it was very, very pretty, the clouds, the colors and everything. It's still pretty. I like the sky at this time of day. I don't get to see sunsets here, but I get one hell of a nice view of the sunrise if I'm awake for it. And this time of year, I'm very likely to be awake for it. The real problem is I'm also very likely to be in my little hole on the computer. And I've been on the computer quite a bit because, yeah, I start to feel very avoidant when I play something like this. Someone mentioned they're betting I don't make it to the tactical map. Well, I'm going to do my damnedest. I mean, one hopes that I don't make it that long, but if I'm still here, I think I will. I have an idea, and some of it has to do with having to walk back and forth. You know, I have to roll 2 dice here. So if you were just sitting there with your stuff in front of you, this would be quicker. But it's taking me, I don't know, 2 to 3 minutes to make the decisions and move the units of a given division. Now, again, you know, the Union has 3, 6, 7, 8. It really isn't. Why isn't this in the chit pool? It should be. The artillery reserve is this artillery pool, although I'm allowed to move them otherwise, which I've been doing. I'll throw it in the pool. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 15, 18, 19, 20, 24. Okay. Confederates aren't moving at all. So, barring anything, the operations that you undertake with each unit, and some of it's just, you know, coping with the map. This hex here for example, has been hellish. You've got and when everything was crowded there, it was really hard to see what's going on. Now I'm beginning to piece my way out. But yeah, let's say you're looking at 2 minutes per division, which is frankly a long time for how, for the fact that I'm basically deciding how to move one piece, right? With all the mechanisms and all the walking around and everything, as well as any thought. So, you're looking at like at least a half hour for this part of the turn. Let's say we round it down a little bit and try to clear things up. Anyway, both sides are trying to pull from their own material, from their own cup, or in the case of the Union, direct command, so that I can get the pulsing right. Because I don't want to pull from the cup. Pulling from the cup is bad, right? Although there's not really that big an advantage. Like, if the Confederates drain their chits, I don't know that there's a huge advantage that they gain out of what they do to the Union chit pulls from the cup. Trying to remember what the penalty was there. I know I looked it up already, and now I forgot it again. I don't even think, it doesn't affect the activity roll. Damn it. But I can't remember those modifiers there. And part of the problem is that's another lookup that I have to make in each case. Now, that would be the 12th Corps and the 1st Corps that I already just did. I think he's okay, but first unit of 2nd Corps moved. It's a very minor chance that it's going to impact anything at any given time. I think on the first turn it probably impacted at least 1 unit. But that's just looking at the probabilities. All right, anyway. I'm glad I take time to stop and talk, because it does help me find things. Like, oh shit, I'm looking at this more carefully. I'm not just remembering it in my head. But it doesn't impact your activity, but it may lower your activity by a level. Trying to remember what it does. All right. Now I have to try to remember where the fuck I found it. Is it in here? Or was it somewhere else? It's in here, right? Now this is the minuses. That's that. What am I thinking? Chit burn. I don't even recall. I know it's in here somewhere. Equivalent movement to an inactive, which is not far from what the units are getting anyway. Because inactive is 2 hexes. The units are probably as bad, but I might decide 2 hexes isn't reasonable on there. I haven't chosen yet. But it really, like, as written, it doesn't do any harm. Those times that I'm getting to, that's me now fairly comfortable with at least this little bit of the game that I'm doing. Right? Not great, but, I've got my pattern down. I'm as fast as I can be. The question is, am I forgetting some rolls? Like, I'm finding myself more and more reversing the order of units as their movement. So like, 11th Corps here, I had to spread out this way. I swapped these 2 for full movement allowance. 6th Corps did the same thing so that they can head and join the rest of their corps. This is 1st Division, 6th Corps. It's just you know, it was convenient for me to move in a particular direction. It's not convenient for me to keep moving in that direction. So something new is happening. I just got regular movement with Cav, 18 movement points for Kilpatrick. We're about to violate the movement orders, the line. I figure I'm going to be doing it here anyway, so I might as well. So, with 18 movement points, I want to get within a couple of Hanover. I'd like to be within a couple of Hanover and a couple of York. So this is 2. Yeah, that's not good. 2. My unit could fill this. It can't get close enough to cover both. However, wait a minute. I think I'm allowed to spread out a little bit with Cav. Let me look that up. Well, the spreading out is represented by there being a greater number of units there. So I'm covering more ground, but it's still not going to be enough to do it. Anyway, what did I say? 18 movement points. These are 4 each. Let me just make sure. Primary road, operational map, in, out, 2, 4. So 4, because I'm beyond the line. 4, 8, 12, 16. Okay, so what I'd be doing here, I'm in this hex. 4. I'm still not within 2. 8. Now I call out 3642. And the Confederates check over here. And they look, and they're like, Early's the only close thing. It's, I don't remember if it's 4 hexes or 2 hexes. Let's see. I believe it's 2 in the outer. So I would only be able to detect something within a couple of York. I don't have to announce anything. Now, if I knew the scenario, I would know the Confederates are there. I don't feel like Meade knows where the Confederates actually are, so I'm going to ignore that. But what I've just done is 3642 I called out. Now, I'm going to ignore the rest of these, but 4, 8, 12, 16, he has 18 movement points. Which way do I want to go? I think I actually want to head towards York. And we shift the rest of the unit up here. And now I have called out as far as 3443. Now, unfortunately, I'm using the replacement units, but they're command shifts. But now I don't remember the number. I believe it's this, 3443. So now I know there's a Union unit there because he's called it out. I haven't actually detected him or anything, but I hear his call outs. He's going to declare that it's Cav doing this, which means now I have to check if I have anything within 3 of him for each of his call outs. And again, I'm nowhere near there. I mean, I'm there, but I do know that there's Union Cav in this general vicinity. I actually know that they're in this hex and that's their lead hex because they're calling it out. And from now on, that kind of call out is going to be happening on every single move, except for stuff that's clearly behind friendly lines. Clearly doesn't include these guys, for example. Now they're safe, but they're going to start spawning counters as well, moving onto the map as they do so. I was hoping Kilpatrick wouldn't be there, but he ended up in the cup instead of in march mode because I didn't get enough activation, like I didn't get any activation points basically. I got a 0 on him. He was the guy who should have gone inactive. I might not have wanted to move him because of that, like I might have I might not have wanted to move him fully because of that, but I also did want to get within 2 of Hanover, which is going to trigger that anyway, so might as well. The extra Union flags from the bag into there. This actually activates for the Confederates too, so I'll do the same, move some Confederate flags over here so that if they happen to move, I'll have them, but at the very least I have the flags out. Now, I'm just using the unused divisional command counters for this. I don't know, that's probably not going to be enough. What what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to be able to peel one off of each of these, because it's really unlikely that somebody's going to use all 3 counters on the operational map. Like, that kind of big, heavy march is, but, you know, you might have to ask for a counter back every now and then or something like that. They don't really go into the fact. They make it sound like you're only supposed to have 2 of these counters, but you're allowed to build 2 extra counters. And actually their way of dealing with that is, hey, use the A, B, or C or whatever. Marching that hard is really bad on your units, so you wouldn't want to do it. I have other options though for flags if I really want to. I can pull from another game. Obviously, the old Victory game Civil War has flags for the 2 different sides. They'll look different, which is kind of useful. Another option would be to go with War Between the States, which I still haven't played. Another Clash of Arms game, which I think uses the exact same flag appearance for their counters. That would be kind of appealing from an aesthetic point of view, but not so good from a cleaning up point of view. Immediately after that, we've done it, finally. I pulled the 112. That's this guy over here. He's quite far from Slocum. His value is +3. He can't use any additional points. He can only get them from his Corps Commander. And then I roll the equivalent to Snake Eyes. +3 is 5. Inactive. So I actually get the inactive marker. And there are multiple places you could put these suckers. I'm going to put it right on the map because I think that's useful. Now, it has a 2-hex maximum movement, but it's a 2-hex maximum movement on the tactical board as well. I'm going to limit that to 1 hex just to make things uglier. Oh, and I know one of the 12th was beat up, right? Yeah, it's the 212 that is. I thought so. So I'm allowed to shift 1 hex. All these little curvy roads on 2 small hexes. This goes back. It doesn't matter. My movement was halved, but I get that 1 hex minimum even on an inactive. So I get to keep punching forward. I'm clearly behind behind friendly lines, so I don't have to call anything out. Confederates don't know the extent of my lines. All they know right now is these 2 cav, and probably that I'm coming from the south generally. Although, you know, if they studied the scenario setup, they would know the actual locations of all the units at the beginning of the game, so they would be pretty sure that I'm not too far. They'd probably be surprised by this. I'm surprised by it. But that's got nothing to do with luck particularly, except the luck of the units got their commands drawn from the cup in a good order for whatever that mattered, but I probably could have gotten them in there. So that inactive is going to be a problem from now on until I cure it. And that probably means Slocum wants to make his way over, which may mean on my next activation I just get Geary. Geary, not Gary. Geary. That's the only thing I can think of where the Gary thing came from. Their pool is empty now, and they just won an initiative. At which point they tell the Union you have to burn one. And the Union has 2 choices, basically. They can take something out of direct command and throw it in the cup, or they can pull from the cup and it will not make an activation roll, but only be able to move 1 hex. I'm going to do the latter, because much as I'd like to move, I want to move that 212, I also I mean, there's other things I could throw in the cup pretty safely, like the 1-6. I really don't think he's going to find a way to get anywhere. Yeah, let's just throw him in the cup. He's not there. Yeah, is he gone already? Yeah, he went. He just didn't do anything. Oh no, he switched order. Yeah, I don't want to throw anything in the cup. So I'm going to draw from the cup, and we'll see what the effect is. There's not a lot in here, so at some point or another I have to throw in. But having only one counter in the cup, you know what it is. It's your own stuff. So I get Doubleday's third back here with a 1 hex movement. No rolls necessary. Now I have Reynolds there, so it would have helped. I look here, 1-1 would have normally been full movement, but I'll just move him 1 hex. I may have moved Reynolds already. I don't know. I don't remember. And that fires that off. It doesn't impact anything over here. Not actually, that's in the recovering stage. It's like not just in the recovery box, but it is actively recovering so that it can erase, which means I might not have gotten, like, if I was playing this by as written with the 2 hex movement, I might not have gotten more than that. Like, it's 12 movement points. It would be halved once. Probably not halved again. Halved once would mean 6 movement points, which would mean about 3 hexes. But if I got lower, halved and halved again would be the 2 hexes. And that just, to me, it just doesn't seem to make sense. I think when you compare it to the fact that I'm only allowed to move 2 hexes on here, and that is not 2 of these, I don't care how you do it. Union won the initiative the next time, so I moved that 212 division up to here. Now, I'm adjacent to these, but I'm not adjacent by road, so I don't think I can commandeer them. I don't know what's going on with the artillery, to tell you the truth. But Slocum hasn't moved yet, so I get to take his free move, and I moved him up to the inactive general. That'll allow me, I spent one of my points. I'll be able to keep one no matter what. And that'll give me the opportunity next turn to spend a point no matter what to reactivate that for whatever value that is. I mean, he's still just going to be inching his way up. Another little weird thing that happens when you're moving the head of a unit. So, let's see. I don't remember where these guys were. I think Howe was here, and he would have been able to move 2, 4, 6. But the problem is some of the trailing units were on secondary roads and could only move 2 hexes. Then I don't have any more movement points, so I can't move the extra hex no matter what. And so I'm kind of delayed based on that. I don't think I want to move Sedgwick over to Newton because, I mean, he's got a point he could give to Newton, but I don't think Newton really needs it. I'm kind of thinking about flipping Newton around. I don't know what this terrain is like here. This is the fun. Yeah, so that goes back up this way. So I could join with the rest of the corps. And because Wright's down here as part of the corps, I kind of want to try to consolidate it because it really is not a good idea to have your corps split up like that. I don't think there's a way to put units under independent orders, which is kind of fucked up. Because, I've got something like First Corps here, in a sense, Doubleday, kind of, I could see where I'd want to dispatch him and make him independent. It almost feels like I should be able to, I don't know what, spend a point? What's going on there? If you have units that are, and there are units that enter the game that are independent. So maybe I'm just not realizing something. I'm not going to worry about it and look it up, but it is something that's kind of troubling my mind. is that at some point or another, I may well want to be able to detach a unit, and I'm not at all sure there were any rules for that. Whereas if you're playing the historical entry to the tactical map, there are units that enter as independent, and they don't have to go join their corps, and they can operate using the independent rules the same way the cav operate, which just means la la la, you know. Now, I'm pretty sure guys like this are independent, but I'm not positive. No. I just can't hold it all in my head, right? A short series of Confederate, like I think 2 in a row, wins, where they basically hit the Union with, hey, you got to do something, and the Union just started tossing direct commands into there. I maybe should have called out this. I think so. That's 4126. Okay. Let me put a marker there. 4126. That's here. I don't feel like this is covered. Everything else that I've moved, I feel is covered. I got the artillery consolidated again. It doesn't, see, the thing is, it doesn't have to move consolidated. It can attach to divisions, but I was just getting too confused about where everything was. All the Union units are moved now. There are no Confederate units with any orders at all, right? I mean, these guys were all in the cup, but none of them are allowed, or none of them want to move. They want to collect 15 victory points at each turn. But now I get to do the march mode for the remaining Union units. It still requires an activation check, which can prevent things from moving. I feel I am free to move Beaufort now. I kind of feel like I want to get my stuff on here. You know, I want to get it on the tactical board as quickly as possible, and start deploying my defenses, whatever they may be. And that may require me to kind of, you know, some stuff I kind of know, you know, like, hey, Cemetery Hill's going to be good. The Round Tops, I don't know about them. I never know about trying to defend the Round Tops. Yes, they command this road, but it's such shitty terrain. Like, it's such rough terrain. Like, this is just so beautiful, right? And then when you go over Seminary Ridge, is beautiful terrain. It's a bit more forest than I'm used to seeing. I'm used to there being like, well, it looks like a big clear plain coming through here. Now, some of this is orchard. That basically, I think, means nothing. Clear farm orchard. Yeah, orchard is basically clear terrain. Oh, but yeah, I kind of want to get my guys on the map and try to defend it. Of course, if I'm there, what does the Confederacy do? You know, they're probably better on the map because they can squat on a defensive location. But, you know, I could conceivably press Union units up to here and, you know, try to defend some of the line, the line across Gettysburg, and try to defend this way. Of course, the terrain doesn't go that way, right? But there's good chunks of terrain. So, I mean, look, obviously, right? I know that defensive line works, right? I know this defensive line works, but there's danger. There's no real good line cutting, you know, I mean, you're familiar with Gettysburg. There's no real good line. This really shouldn't be there. That allows me to defend north of Gettysburg. Which, you know, is somewhat problematic, but I might be able to create some sort of trap between these two or something. I don't know. I really don't know. You know, there's also no good north-south line here until I hit Hare's Ridge. If I hit Hare's Ridge and defend there, then then I'm defended against either that direction or this direction, which is somewhat appealing. But again, there's nothing I'm trying to do geographically to prevent the Confederates from doing something, right? So they can probably figure out some way to find some place on the map to park, no matter what I do. So the fact that I'm on the map early doesn't really help the Union much. It's really because the Union is going to be forced to attack. There's absolutely no reason the Confederates will launch an attack. Unless they kind of blunder into something and it looks good. Hey, there's a couple of cav there. Okay, let's try for them. Oops, they got carbines. TSS just so overrates the Union cav as like dismounted forces. Yes, it is true that Buford did an impressive job holding a much larger force off, but like, I think they're just far too heavily rated. I think Thunder does a pretty good job on it. This game, it's going to be related to, hey, what are the strength point values for these things? And they're not that fantastic because they're not big units, right? The armaments, the individual armaments that they're holding and everything aren't being accounted for in the same way. So I don't count on the Union Cav being able to do the kind of job that they did historically in this game. They just don't look well enough rated, and they're not given anything. I mean, like, I don't know. They've got good morale. I'll give them that. They've got good morale because you look at these guys. These guys are like 6'3". This is pretty good, but it's a big unit. Big unit loses its morale more quickly. Like, it has more hits to take, therefore it has more capacity to lose morale. Over here, you can see I've moved the leaders, but yeah, I'm just kind of looking. And then there's always the option of, look, the Confederates could just like hole up in these hills here and try to defend them. They'll get a defensive bonus from them. They won't have to worry about all the complexity of maneuvering and everything. I'm not at all convinced that like the combat system, like I look at it and I say, I want to fight on this field, but I'm not convinced that the combat system actually is going to give the defender an advantage by being on the tactical map. And the Confederates are the defender here. They have absolutely nothing they need to do. The only question is, how many times are they allowed to take that 15 points? And, if they're allowed for a full day, which, the rules don't have any limit, but if they're allowed to for a full day, it's enough points that, I've said this before, if they fight out, anything like the Battle of Gettysburg, they win a decisive victory probably. Or at least a major victory. If they're allowed to sit there forever, which is kind of the, hey, let's just move off here, let's go into the mountains here, and let's camp there. Let's go into encampment in the South Mountains. Then I won't get as many points because I had to move. But if I'm allowed to collect points all game, there's absolutely no reason I would go on the board. I would. Well, see, the problem is if I'm encamped, I'm not sure that I count as being in. Yeah, you deploy to battle formation when you're close, like it's automatic. So yeah, there's like it would take away all the opportunities for maneuver and everything. That doesn't feel like what the game is designed to do at all, right? There's a whole lot of maps here that I really should be using, and here I go chattering again far too much, repeating, the same things, maybe a little differently. But yeah, my feeling is that these rules were designed to do X, which is the Confederates don't move for a day, and they enter here on July 1st. And if that's what they're designed to do, I can try to do that and then try to find defensive terrain. And then, you know, the Union will be 200 points behind or whatever, and forced to attack. Yeah. Because there's nothing they can do. They can't cut off any kind of supply lines or communications lines or anything like that to make the Confederate position untenable. Now compare this to the rules, not in Thunder or Terrible Swift Sword, but in Last Chance for Victory, where the Confederates are not allowed, like they take a massive hit in their victory points if something happens. Maybe I'll look those rules up and try to create something equivalent to them from here. And I sure don't mind that the Confederates are still camped here. They have not seen enough of the Union movement to be afraid. Thinking something along the lines of, look, if the Confederates march down this way and park over here, which they could also do, right? Although their armies split up, so it's not the best of situations. But let's say they were to do that. Let's say they were just to march down here and mellow out towards the south. I feel under those conditions, they should lose their victory points because they're not, see, the thing is they're gathering supplies and whatnot that they're going to take with them if they leave, but it doesn't feel that important if I just leave. If I march into Pennsylvania, get somewhere near Harrisburg and then just pull out. That doesn't feel reasonable, right? So if I don't try to engage the Union somewhere, but what can I do to force the Union movement? Well, once I'm on this map, if I start looking at the Last Chance for Victory concept, which I think is going to require that I keep a line of communication southward. Now, obviously I have that here, but I kind of don't have it here. Which means if I want to have a line of communication, Gettysburg is exactly where I want it. It is the hub in the area between my core, and that forces me on the map, and then I find a place where I can kind of hold a line of communication. Now, of course, in the historical situation, the Union ends up lining up across here. There's definitely room for a line of communication for the Confederates in such a case. You know, there's roads back here and whatnot. I'm not sure the Emmitsburg Road is a reasonable thing. Like anything that's cutting down across Cemetery doesn't make a lot of sense. So, and then maybe we'll just, start playing more by feel, more of the Dean Essig view of games. And that's the whole thing, I mean, maybe this was being play tested and people stopped trying to win the games by their victory conditions. It's not ASL. It's not a game where necessarily just looking at the victory conditions to try to figure it out. And they may have grumped afterwards, oh, well, I tried to do what I thought I was supposed to, that kind of stuff. I've been in games that, that I feel that way even about. But it's a real problem when the victory conditions don't align with what the game's trying to actually do. At the end of the movement, this is what the Union force looks like. Buford has pushed towards Gettysburg a little bit. I mean, he's not a little bit, he's on the Fairfield line. Merritt's making his way over to try to defend Rick Barber's signature there. Sykes is spreading out because he has to try to figure out a way to get onto the map through the curly switchbacks that the map is made up of. The roads don't look anything like they appear on the map in some of these places, but again, there's a distortion factor, which is why I don't want to fight off the tactical map. You know, let's see. Obviously, we've got the big push here, push coming through here. And then the interesting thing is, yeah, we got some little puddles of interest, you know? Boop, 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 boop. I figure this has to be exposed because this is not a solid front line by any means. I mean, if I look at it from the union point of view, I don't feel like this is covering these guys. So there we have it. But stuff that's moving behind it all, things like Sykes, there's just no way that the Confederates could have slipped through, so I don't have to call it out. What the Confederates know is that this is probably Cav. I might have called out Cav movements there. Same thing with this and this. I'm not so sure with this. I don't know if I've announced that. But, you know, I don't have to call out Cav probing to get the extra information, because I may not want to let the enemy know that he's not facing an infantry corps moving into that area. It's such a weird situation at this beginning of the game that I'm taking the 3 Union divisions that are not recovering yet, and I'm going to keep track of them and not worry about that big stack. Normally you would look at whatever's at that stack and do any recovery, but yeah, I'm going to be erasing from the majority of these units. So we slip into the 9 a.m. turn. This is the casualty sheet now. That's the main thing that I haven't shown. What else? Weather didn't change. I was looking for a weather table to see if it was on the charts. I don't think it would be, but I wouldn't be completely shocked to find it. But I did find something I didn't expect. There's a line of sight gauge. There's no explanation of how to use this. I know how to use it. This is similar to the old TSS and GBACW original system. I don't know if it still follows it. It's a pretty solid system. You basically just use this, count a number of hexes, and put the so you look at the terrain level from one hex, terrain level to another hex, and then look for the most likely blocking hex sides or hexes that would be in between them, and you find the elevations of those. And, you know, if a straight line, you know, it basically gives you the straight line of sight on a little 2D chart that's very, very useful in situations where it's not obvious. It's essentially the same as what the rules provide. It just gives a graphical representation. But again, they don't tell you how to use it, which is just fitting. All right, we're done. I'm gonna break here. Probably go back to sleep. I had a couple hours of snooze, but I need more. And I don't know. Wednesday, it's almost time for a raid, and I can see my battery did not charge. But whatever. I woke up really late. I ended up sleeping like 10 hours or something, which I wasn't counting on, especially since I had a couple hours that I thought I napped. So I jump on to try to get rid of excess energy in raid, and it's just fucking slow as hell and driving me crazy in terms of that. And that's basically the thing that I think will eventually break me of my habit, is that it just becomes too fucking annoying to play. Anyhow, we're going to start with the admin phase here on, what is it, like 9 o'clock? 9 a.m. And I roll up the A and V's points for Lee. He gets 3 points. That's what I believe he needs to trigger Imboden. And that I think I'm going to put Imboden on the turn track somewhere. I could either put him on it, or I could put, I could use a letter thing and put a letter thing on him, which is probably even more valuable because I'm not actually moving my units around. It's kind of big. General Meade rolled a 0. I had to check to make sure this can happen. He went inactive. The Army of the Potomac is kind of without command. Now, luckily, I have the Reynolds situation. I can keep funneling units on the map and whatnot. Plus, there's not much I want to do. I've expended most of my points, but I do still have to expend. These are all under Reynolds, though. But Reynolds also only got 1 point. The consideration, obviously, anyone you can spend a command point on and put in direct command in this R&R phase or whatever, it's a great thing because you get to choose the order, you know, whatever you get your operations, unless they end up getting burned by your opponent. But what you put in the cup, you have to decide, kinda, not necessarily. If you have everything in good view, you can fire off the things you absolutely want to fire with direct command to get them out of the way. And then you can pull from the cup. But to some extent, it's kind of nice to know, I want the cup to go late or I want the cup to go early, right? Like, you could spend points on units you want to delay to put in here and then draw from the cup early, or you could spend points to get units that you want moving first in here, or you want to order, and then put, isn't that what I just said? Put the units you want late in the cup. You could also choose to just put like the units you want to go early in the cup and draw from it early. But the reality is, you don't, like, I'm kind of making that balance, and then I'm like, I don't actually have to do that. It doesn't really help me not to, but I don't have to think as hard because I can just put everything that I want to go, that must go early or that I want to go late into the direct command and pull the cup contents in between those two or something. I actually have quite a bit of flexibility. Any way you cut it, though, it's going to cost you a fair amount of core command points to get your army moving in the ordering you want. But what else am I going to do? Just save them until, you know, whenever? Well, that's not a bad choice because the battle could start today. The only reason it's not going to is that I know that the Confederates are better off collecting those victory points. Because the Union's all over Gettysburg, man. Which, that's problematic, right? Because why are they there? They're there because they know what they shouldn't, which is that it is the best way for the Confederates to connect back. And that may be why some sort of, not a geographical victory point type thing, but a geographical option in terms of, you know, like I'm looking at or thinking about, and I haven't looked up Last Chance for Victory yet, for, hey, you've got to have a way off and back south. You've got to have a protected route back south as the Confederates. The Union's pretty safe no matter what. I mean, I guess if they got cut off to the west, it would suck. That would probably be their worst case scenario. Not that they don't have, you know, a connection back that way, but because they are in Northern Territory right now, but it would not, it would put them out of position for defending things like Washington or Harrisburg. Of course, Washington's pretty heavily garrisoned right now. Can't really get away with this, a kind of mishmash that I think I just did. And you know, it's hard to keep your mind straight on these things. So I'm just going to pay for this to give me the option to move it. I had second, so I'm not that worried. But I can't tell because I can't tell where the fucking road is, right? Yeah, so I've got to wait till Newton gets out of the way for second to go. And I actually just don't care when this goes. If I catch up to it, I catch up to it. So I'll take that point back. Saving a point is good. I'm actually saving a fair amount of points, but again, you know, What are they going to do to me? Until I sort of make contact with the enemy, I don't even know when and if I'm going to fight. Here's a key point. After I crossed those lines, nothing was announced by the Confederates. Once I start seeing their forces, and they will have to announce their forces if they move, then I'll have an idea. But if I know they're not moving, I know they're kind of not in my area. If I know the initial setup, I know more than that. Which leads me to you want to make this a really optional game or whatever. I feel like there should be some sort of pre-game mechanism that gets the Confederates into position because, and honestly, the Union into position. Like, it just feels like the starting point is the wrong one. Now, I'm not talking about something where they can actually meet or whatever. I'm talking about something that's scripted enough that it will more or less prevent them from meeting, or maybe start the game early if they start to get too close, or something along those lines. I don't know how you do that, though, without you could do it with like something like the point-to-point map and an umpire who's like, all right, we're going to start the game now. Things are closing up. Because the truth of the matter is that the Army of the Potomac thought it was defending what was important. I'd have to know more about the campaign to really be able to tell, but yeah, I mean, I don't feel like the Confederates have absolute liberty, but maybe they have liberty to follow their route and take it as far as they want, because this kind of positioning all around coming down back to Gettysburg may not be the optimal choice for their starting situation. They might want a concentration of forces, whatever. And the last thing I got is the Stuart roll, and then I'm gonna go raid for a while. I succeeded in getting the Confederates to get a Stuart roll. They got Franklintown. Now first, 2139. First the Union checks it. That doesn't sound like it's near me, and it's not. It's up here. Boy, that's close to the Confederates, so they better check. 2139, Franklintown. That's right here. Now I think it's within 2 or 3 hexes you gotta be. And it's gotta be road hexes, so yeah, it's 2 in the outer. I did not find the Confederate forces that are just a little north of me. When am I going to find anything? Well, Carlisle I'd certainly find. And because I didn't get, even though I got a really nice high roll there, and apparently Stuart's looking around over here or something, I don't know. I don't know how he gets to Franklintown without coming close to Early or these guys. But whatever. He was just unable to see them and stays off board. That's weird. Okay, and that's going to put me back to the beginning of, well, let's roll our initiative. Union had last initiative. I could spend, I don't care to. I don't know why, but I can't think of a great reason. The Confederates are going to get the initiative this time, which means on the action impulse control, they're going to get the first action here in the 9 a.m. turn. Probably should put their counters in a cup. And then I'm done for now. Well, before midnight on Wednesday. And, It's Wednesday already. What the fuck, man? Like, I know. My weeks are always fucked up. But what I'm thinking here is, yeah, all right, so I overslept today. I maybe stayed up too late. I should try to change my schedule, right? Yeah, but not on Wednesday. Like, that means I get one day and then maybe I wake up too early on Friday. Just not worth it. Like, it's weird because it's like I shifted, like I should have shifted a day later and then it would have been fine because I was getting up early enough and everything. I don't know. Anyway, we've got Confederate advantage already, I guess. And did I do that? I'm not really sure. I don't know if I rolled or not yet. Yeah, I just don't know. This is the problem with this, using this counter as my initiative, but on the other hand, wherever I put it, it would still be face up. I really should have started the action impulse. I think I did the impulse control segment. I think I already rolled it, which means the Confederates get the first call. Yeah, I remember discussing this. Do they want to burn their own or Union ones? I really don't know. I really don't know. I do have these markers on the turn when they're going to become, the cav units are going to become available to move about. Confederates have the initiative. They've been kind of running out their counters because they get more successes than the Union does, and they have less units total. So they've emptied their chit cup. Meanwhile, not much has happened that the Confederates could detect. Greg moved. That I managed to see over there. But that's about it. Union used up all the guys that they wanted to move first. They've got the first of the first here, which it kind of doesn't matter what I do with. So I'm leaving them there because they're something I can degrade without losing any capability, essentially. And we're pushing into the 10 a.m. turn. Here's the current Union positioning. That's not. I forgot all about these moves. Okay, I'll do them. I'll be back. Not much difference. It was just the cav that was moving. Beaufort's moved over here. Kilpatrick's gotten his way up here. Greg had already moved. He hadn't gotten any, I didn't put him in the operational movement. Merritt slipped over here. I didn't put him in the operational because I needed to move him out of the way or something. I don't know. I really don't know. Anyway, this is what we see over here. Here's Beaufort at the point of things. Now, this is kind of troubling because, look, Beaufort was kind of patrolling this area here. And now by sliding over, I've opened this entire route. And I would actually say the south is kind of free to march up. But the problem is Merritt is shifting over and is actually going to be covering that. And I'm aware of that, so I feel like things are okay. I kind of feel like primary roads are the necessary ones for maintaining any kind of connection. Plus, these guys are out back here. Not going to do much there. And then I guess the most interesting thing is right here. Now these still stretch all the way back, not all the way to Hanover. Some snakes are moving around, but within 2 hexes, so that Stuart can't come in at Hanover. I'm just out of range of being able to get the information from York. But the Confederates do know that I'm there. Even though I'm not within range of their units, the Union is calling out the actions. I also do know that's cav, even if I they have to do a hex by hex call out. So anything, you know, I do get to know which little flag is moving. So like Beaufort moving from here to here, I get to hear it hex by hex and trace where the unit is. It's possible something could end up covering something else, and there's, you know, things I don't know about. Likewise, the Wadsworth here, he's not showing up, even though he's fairly close compared to some other things that are showing up. He might end up screening this. I'm not sure. Yeah, if he moves a little bit further, I'm going to be able to say that you'll no longer see him. And then that's well, I'll think there's a unit here, but there isn't. In terms of the counters, I started using the letter counters just because, I don't know, I'll hunt down and get what I need to and whatever. I tried pulling Civil War out and just like, I don't want to mix game counters up, even though they're different looking. But part of it is them looking different bothers me in and of itself. We got the repairs to the divisional morale. Started using a Q-tip instead of relegating it to pipe cleaning. I'm not sure how I feel about it. It makes it easier on the fingers, but if anything, it may be a little bit clumsier than trying to pinch a little teeny bit of this and use it. But yeah, it's too delicate a work to do things reasonably well. But it does make it easier on the fingers, which is probably good. And then the final thing is the weather got warmer. It's still clear, it's not going to affect anything, but you know, as the day gets later, there's more and more chance of that happening. I think we've reached a new stage in the game. If you recall, I was saying, hey, turns are taking, you know, a couple of minutes per divisional activation. I've gotten it down from that. I've probably gotten it under a minute per divisional activation, which doesn't feel too terrible. I'm still, you know, there are ways I can make it easier. For example, keep the chart, because only the Union's going, keep the chart near the Union here and do all the die rolling there. Maybe even move the Confederate Cup so that I can count things out and just do it over here. And I could actually more or less ignore everything in terms of, you know, this kind of having to move back and forth. It's pretty much between here and that. But when something is moving on the map that is possible to reveal, I do have to come over here and position that. This is just a pure solo problem. If you were playing opposed, there would be no difficulty at all, you know, in this. And I think you could probably get anywhere between 30 and 45 seconds maybe per divisional move as you start to get the flow in. And just talking about the operational game, right? Once we get to the tactical game, yeah, we're probably talking, you know, more. But I don't really mind that. I'm used to that kind of thing in a Gettysburg game. I'm used to the turns taking a little bit of time. It's just that this is the day before the battle and nothing's really happening. And I feel like I'm spending a lot of effort moving stuff. You know, is it more effort than, say, TSS at the regimental level, where there's a lot, you know, where there's more units and everything that are moving around on the board? I don't know, a little bit. Is the command and control worth it? Well, definitely. I mean, that's the big flaw in TSS. And it's why it's why I'm not excited about Three Dog. And why I don't pull it out, you know, why I haven't pulled it out. I'm just not that excited about standard chit pull games. And that's what that is, I think. You know, I know Berg designs, he did something like that with the Napoleonics, and I tried it, and it's like, yeah, it just feels kind of random, you know. This gives me a fair amount of control, and I have to spend to get that control. I do like that aspect of it. It is not covering everything that orders do. Certainly not in the same way. It's not covering everything that orders do, I'll say. I still got to add my 15 points. That'll bring them to 45. But it's also like, I still think significantly more expensive to deal with, even as I get used to it. It's certainly more painful to get used to. Like, it's not intuitive the way writing orders is. I mean, look, when you write an order, if it's a fairly detailed order, it might take you a couple minutes to write an actual order for CWB. Most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time it's just like, move to the vicinity of X. You know? But when you're playing with things like defensive orders and stuff, when you're trying to do stuff that's not allowed in the rules, but appears to be, like, there's no indication that the rules allow it, but then it shows up in the scenario, like setup instructions with, you know, units with orders like, patrol this road. Like, the fuck? You're making shit up for the scenario. Well, if you're going to do that, I should be able to do it within the course of the game, which is actually the issue that I have with the detachments. I feel like I should be able to detach it. I put off looking for things because the rules are not that pleasant to cope with. And I keep thinking, hey, what's up? Where are detached units? One problem is there's no index at the back. There's just the table of contents. And I'm assuming it's going to be in the command and control section. But I don't know. See, command and control is broken up into the, hey, how do you use the command points? How do you do this? How do you do that? And it's not really dealing with the structure, right? Which is what I'm worried about here. I don't remember where independent units are handled. Maybe they're in activity, right? But if they are, they're probably buried in here, not in something I can find easily, and that pisses me off. Yeah, and it's like, look, if I look it up, I'm going to forget it again, so fuck it. But I do feel like there should be a capability to detach units within the course of the game. I'm just, like, I don't want to say that there's not. I don't remember one. That's what pisses me off. And if I can't find one, I think I'm going to make that up. I'll tell you what there's not. There's not what I want to make up, which is you spend a command point to send a unit out as a detachment. As a detachment, it's not going to be as functional as a regular unit because your activity roll is going to be sitting, maybe not. I've been giving it a -3. Oh, no. The -3, what the fuck, man? I've been giving the independence -3. I'm not seeing it on here. Then again, I'm not seeing it on here either. I just don't fucking know. On rules on independent leaders, it's under the activity section itself. The place that doesn't have anything about it on the charts. They can operate under specific prior orders, therefore they cannot become inactive. They roll for command points to spend on themselves, but get a -3 DRM. If they do roll inactive on a command point die roll, they do not generate. On their subsequent activity die rolls, should they roll inactive, the deficient receives half results. So honestly, I think this guy went inactive some time back, but again, you know, it's too hard to cope with. And I'm willing to just say, fuck it, and keep going. Because I want to get to the event. I don't want to have to keep looking shit up through admitted by the designer, really crappy rule set, basically. He didn't put it in those words, but it damn well is. And it's not easy to see how it would be fixed. It's like the general conception of it seems to be causing issues. But the general conception of it doesn't seem that different from other things. It may really just come down to anytime you're facing someone with very, very different procedures, and this is the problem I have with Euros, because each one is designed, oh, let's do this in a completely new way, right? Not for any reason except that, like, we're going to try to, push a new gameplay mechanism into play. But here, there's a reason beyond let's do this in a completely new way. There are real purposes behind the choices that I think the designers made. Some of them may be misguided, but there you have it. The point I was trying to get to about the inflection point in the game and speeding up the activities and whatnot is that I think this is actually a good point for this video to go up. And I think the rest, I hope I'll have a little less complaining, a little less rule book looking through, maybe a lot less, and more playing, just to try to push through and get to something that we end up on the battlefield someday.